I'm Bill. I'm an addict. Hi, everybody. I love the Zoom part where you say that and everybody's muted, but I have to imagine everybody says hi, Bill. It's all good. Um, when I looked at this topic and thought what I wanted to share about, it kind of excited me in a way, but I realized that I'm going to spend most of my time probably talking about what is an NA, because what is NA really isn't a whole lot. Really, when you look at it, it's not much, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that. I consider the people that are here for this event here, and we're all probably of the same kind, but we're not the whole fellowship, and we're not even probably a majority of the fellowship. There's only maybe 10% of us that are all ate up like this, all in, just crazy. A lot of people just want to come to meetings, learn these principles, use them in their life, help out, try to carry a message at their home group or at groups and stuff like that. And then that's it. That's all they want to do. They don't aspire to be a world board member. They don't aspire to be a recognized speaker. They don't aspire to be anything other than a recovered addict. I mean, that's really all they really want. And I'm afraid that we, in a lot of ways, we don't offer that anymore. And I think that's one of the reasons why our fellowship is so small. People try to say like we're growing crazy and stuff. When I look at numbers, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. And it all goes to the message that we carry as a fellowship. And I've tried my darndest to at least do my part to do right. I've made a few notes here because I really do want to hit on some certain points. I'm going to try to be brief on those points, and so if anybody wants me to elaborate afterwards, there might be some time left. Like Chubbs and probably Antoinette too, though she actually kept hers pretty spot on time wise. I can get carried away and get off on tangents and stuff like that. I'm going to try not to do that, so there's plenty of time for answers, questions, and maybe answers. You guys hear that plane going over? Jeez. The first thing I want to say is what Narcotics Anonymous is, because that's the most important. Narcotics Anonymous is our 12 steps, and our 12 traditions are how we carry the message that's in the 12th step. That's all it is. The traditions are just like, we carry a message. How do we do that? That's the 12 traditions. And that's our program. That is the NA program. And how we deliver that message, one of those ways, the most effective way, the most powerful way, is at meetings. That's the most powerful way. And probably really close to it is fellowshipping. That's the other thing. Those are the two things for me that make up the whole program. The traditions are what help us to properly carry the message so it's most effective. So we're doing God's will. So I'm an instrument of her love, not of what Bill thinks is best. Because, again, my best thinking got me here. My best thinking is still pretty bad. It really is. It's gotten a little better, but I still can't trust it because my ego jumps in there and we're fucked. Totally fucked. I am, at least. So you have to talk then a little bit about meetings and stuff like that, I think. An NA meeting is just two addicts getting together and sharing. And it's a big part of fellowship. And there's different types of meetings. And the meeting is what happens, basically from the beginning to the end. A lot of people say from one prayer to the next, between those two prayers. And that is it. That is it. And there are, thankfully, there's some meetings that have come back, rabbit meetings that have come back that meet kind of on a more infrequent basis, but they're still NA meetings. People just decide to get together, and they have a book. Like the old days, Antoinette will appreciate this, like the old days when we sit around, the damn door didn't get open because the guy with the key relapsed, and somebody pulls out a white book, and we have a meeting. I mean, that's Narcotics Anonymous meeting. That's what it is. And what are we doing there? I'm sharing my experience, strength, and hope on how I work. Well, actually, I like learn better. Learn and apply these to my life, these principles, mostly the steps, mostly the steps. And the tradition, but mostly the steps. And that's what a meeting is. And that's how this whole thing works. It's nothing more. We invite God in and we try to support each other through our experience, strength, and hope. and there's nothing more that goes on there. Sometimes we form a group so that, we're going to be every night or each night at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and we form a group, and we procure a place, and we pay rent. We do those things that have to be done kind of things, those responsible adult things, like we pay rent, and we actually get there on time, maybe make coffee or tea or whatever, and we provide a setting for the meeting, because the meeting is Narcotics Anonymous. The group provides a setting and the circumstances so that the atmosphere is pretty damn good. I mean, that's the whole idea. That's what a group's all about. And really, that's my point, is in a nutshell, that's Narcotics Anonymous. Everything else really isn't. Everything else ends up being a diversion. That's it. And I think I need to recognize that there's a lot of people, maybe 90% of the people, that's enough. That's enough for them. Maybe maybe to the extent that they help out with the group to make sure it meets once a week or twice a week or whenever they meet. That's what they do. And I have to realize that because I do more in my own mind, I'm not better. I'm not better. I just, I just feel like, I want to do some other things too, and that's great. But those are me. Those aren't Narcotics Anonymous. It may help Narcotics Anonymous. It may help provide literature for the meeting. It may help provide literature to addicts, which is kind of more I do. Sometimes we get on Facebook and we talk Narcotics Anonymous. We have discussions and stuff like that. I like to get involved with a lot of stuff. None of that's NA, but I think it helps, and I like that kind of stuff. But it's not NA. NA is what happens at the meeting. That's where it really happens, and it happens in fellowshipping, like when we go out for coffee and stuff, and we talk and these things. I guess it's a little bit doing discussions on Facebook too, about Narcotics Anonymous. We're helping each other out to learn and stuff like that. But it's no more than that. And I think that's what our traditions are I think that's what our traditions guide us to keep. They are what keep that pure. They are what are, they're supposed to keep that pure. And that's the thing. And I think when it talks about that, our first tradition talks about the unity of our program. Our common welfare comes first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. And the unity is not only how well we follow the traditions, but our unity basically is the program. It's we all agree we're going to try to live these spiritual principles in our lives. I mean, that's our unity. That's what we have in common. That's the commonality, and that's really all that tradition is talking about. It says that's of utmost important to keep that up front and first. Our common welfare has to come first. Because personal recovery does depend on you guys. It depends on us together. A lot of people get into the second tradition. They start talking service structure and all this other crap and doing votes at groups and stuff like that. And I don't see any of that there, really. I see people getting together after the meeting and going, where was the coffee guy at? How come there wasn't any coffee? Did somebody pay rent? Right? That kind of stuff. Who's going to chair next month? Those are the things. That's the group conscience. That's what's really going on there. There should be nothing more than that. I'm probably going to make some statements that are, maybe very, I won't say controversial, but maybe different than what you think. I don't see any kind of pyramid. I don't think it should go anywhere, really, because it talks about forming the groups can form together a committee or something, maybe to do something like meeting schedules. Maybe put a website out that has our meeting list on it, something like that. But I don't see why it would go any farther than that in most cases, right? Because the groups have to be in charge. It says that they have to be directly responsible to this. So anytime you have anything that's not not directly responsible anymore, it's not NA. And in fact, I agree with Chubbs a lot that everything that happens outside the meeting supports NA and really isn't NA. It's something there to support it, and that's it. And it has to be directly responsible to those groups that it is supporting. Period. A few other things we do outside of that is sometimes we get together and groups go to places that cannot uphold the traditions. We call them H&I meetings. And the only reason they're there, and the only reason it's an H&I meeting, is because we can't fulfill our responsibility with the traditions. A lot of it has to do with surveillance and stuff like that. that kind of stuff. And it's just a very small thing. And it is just that simple. And keeping it that simple, we can do that. You know, we actually have a very long-standing actual NA meeting, actually NA group that actually meets in a treatment center. And it's pseudo H&I in a way that all the clients go or are allowed to go or whatever. And so, you know, it functions a little bit like that. And you, as the group there, they know they have to take that into account, that it's a group with a lot of new people, a lot of people that are in the, you know, they're in the institution, and they take pains to separate themselves from the institution itself. And they keep the meeting pretty basic to newcomer stuff, because that's what it is, and it serves that purpose. But it can be a group because basically they just allow us to have the meeting room. They don't surveil us or they don't do anything else, and so that can happen. Kind of going off on a tangent there I really didn't want to go to, but that's all right. It was something to say. I want to talk a little bit about the basic text and a little bit about my personal idea of it, because, you know, there is a thing that maybe we need a bigger service structure or something like that to handle our literature and stuff like that. You know, I've read a lot about the history of how the book was written. I was clean then, but I wasn't involved because I was, well, I didn't ever even heard the name Narcotics Anonymous at the time. But I know a lot of people that were involved, and I've talked to them and everything else. And I'm convinced that the basic text was written by God, basically. That's a personal thing, but I really believe that. I think it reads that way. I've seen the people involved, and I'm not impressed. And there's no way those fuckers come up with that shit. You know what I mean? Not so perfectly worded. You know, the simplicity of it and some of the turns of phrases, sure, but you know, the beauty of it, there's just no way that the group that put that together is able to do that. You know, and that's my personal belief. And personally, for me, I think the best basic text is the one they well, at this point, I love a lot of the Gray Book too, but a lot of what they came out with in the first edition. And then when the World Literature Committee, the same people that wrote the basic text using the same process, they did the little white book changes, and they did it the same way because it needed to be done. When they originally did the book, they just shoved them in there the way they were, and they needed to be revised, right? They needed to be revised, and they put out in '83. They put out the new little white book changes, and it didn't pass because of, well, fuckery basically, and the ones that ended up coming out later on were just slightly changed, but they were changed in the places that fucked us. That is saying that things like medicine, religion, psychiatry are not sufficient for us. You know, we didn't believe that. They had no answers. They have no answers. I think it's even truer today, isn't it? They're trying to give us drugs. They're trying to give drug addicts drugs. What kind of idiotic thing is that? Anyway, that's a little soapboxy there. But that's how I believe the basic text. And I think there was a time in our fellowship when a gaggle of people went around the country and wrote the basic text, and now we have it, and that was kind of God's gift to us. And I don't see us have to go any farther. You know, when it comes to translations, all people have to do in other countries is take that book and not translate it word for word, because it doesn't translate word for word. But they need to translate the ideas, the whole things, so that it reads for their country, for their slang, for their understanding. And you need people to do that. And that's, you know, that's what happens with a mature fellowship. When a fellowship grows up in a country that speaks a different language, you know, they're able to get together. And I think with God's guidance, again, to put together a basic text, translate it, that'll do the same magic it does in English, right? That does the same kind of magic. All right, I want to get off on some crazy shit now, because it needs to be talked about, definitely. The third tradition, you know, I think a lot of people get the idea that the third tradition says we shouldn't say sober, and it doesn't say that. All the third tradition says is, it does. I look across the screen here, and there's people of every race, color, religion, sex, everything. Everyone's equal, and if your problem is drugs, you can become part of what we do. You can join us in what we're doing here. That's all it says. It just says there will be there'll be no one kept out if they have a drug problem. There'll be no one kept out if they have a drug problem. And also it says that just because I have so many years doesn't mean I have higher standing. right? Just because I got more time than you doesn't mean I have higher standing. We're all equal. That's what the third tradition says, period. That's it. There's nothing more to it. The stuff about sober and all this other stuff is covered in other places. Thinking of alcohol is different from other drugs has caused a great many addicts to relapse. Well, that's a bad thing. And when we separate clean and sober, to me, you're separating drugs and the alcohol and the drug alcohol. And even in the book, it even throws marijuana in there, which is good too, especially since we're legalizing it all over the place. But you know what I mean? It throws that in there too. All drugs are the same. And that's why we just use clean. All right? That's that, but that's somewhere else. I don't think you can use the third tradition to say you can't say these things. The third tradition is just like what I was saying. The autonomy, man, one of the things that's been driving me crazy and got me in trouble a little bit on Facebook because people can't read or understand what I wrote or something. I'm too obtuse, I think, sometimes a little bit too sublime. I've been trying to tell them at meetings, and some of you have been around a while will realize this. We never read the traditions in meetings. You know what I mean? They were up on the wall sometimes. I mean, you've seen them and stuff, and we had tradition meetings once in a while, but we didn't read the traditions. And we've gotten into this thing where there's like a cookie cutter meeting. The meeting has to proceed just like this. We have to say these things, then we have to do key tags, then we have to read who's in that, and we have to go right down the line. We have to read all these things. And it's like, and I tell them, listen, you can not read one of those things. It's all right. About the only thing I will defend is the idea of you definitely need to read the first 4 if there's somebody with less than 30 days at the meeting. You know what I mean? You definitely have to read those, I think. But other than that, and that's kind of a personal thing, a group can still do what they want. But other than that, you don't have to read things. And I challenge them not to read something, and I see the angst in them. It's like they can't do it. It's hurting them. And I think that's what cults do. We're not supposed to be a cult, right? That scares me. That scares me that we're so rigid that we have this thing that we have to do. I think it's crazy we use up 20 minutes of an hour meeting when I think the most important part is sharing experience, strength, and hope. I had a home group about 20 years ago where we had basic text for everybody. And as long as there wasn't somebody, within their first 30 days, we didn't read nothing. We just opened the meeting, you said the serenity prayer, and started reading from the book. And we read some stuff from the book, and then we share about it. And most of the whole hour was taken up with, sharing experience, strength, and hope, and what we read and what's going on and that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that that's the right way to do a meeting, but I'm saying that's a way to do the meeting, and it's okay. And we have to, we have to really get back to the group autonomy. The other part of that is of that tradition is the group's the final authority. As long as it's consistent with the traditions, the group's the final authority on how they present Narcotics Anonymous. It doesn't matter what anybody approves above them or votes on. It doesn't matter. It's up to the group. The group may say, "Hey, that's a good idea. Let's do that." But it's barely a suggestion in my mind. The groups are the ultimate arbitrators of what goes on, which goes back to the second tradition, because they have a group conscience and they bring God in, right? And this actually holds true to a meeting too. Even though a meeting doesn't really have a group, maybe in a group conscience, they still have to abide by the traditions. They're still held to that standard to be an NA meeting. And it's not like it's not like I'm an authority saying you have to do this. I'm saying that's what makes NA. Doing the tradition, doing this by the traditions is what makes NA. That's what makes it happen. It's kind of like membership. You can say you're a member if you want or anything else, but really when you act like a member, you're a member. That's to me, that's the thing. There's no rules. You don't have to be here so long. You don't have to have a sponsor. You don't have to have all these other things. You don't even have to have, done any of the steps. You're a member when you start participating, basically. And it's the same thing with meetings. You're a meeting when you live within the traditions and you're trying to carry experience, strength, and hope and doing this NA thing. And that's it. That goes to fit the primary purpose. I kind of just talked on it. The primary purpose is just carry the message, right? It's just to carry the message, the Narcotics Anonymous message, the 12 steps, 12 traditions. That's it. That's what we're there for, and that's what we do in that time frame. And nothing else is NA. You know, that's the part. Nothing else is NA, and that's our problem. I see today, because I'm going to kind of get more controversial here in a second. But that's our problem today. 95% of the stuff I see isn't NA, but it's got the NA name on it. It's got the stamp of approval. It's got this is NA on it, in one way or another, and that's what's fucking us. Basically, that's what's fucking us, because we're not adhering to our primary purpose. We spend way too much time not on the primary purpose, which is just to carry this message, to make sure that meetings happen, that newcomers are taken care of, and people with time too when they're hurting, you know, making telephone calls, fellowshipping. That's Narcotics Anonymous. The rest of this shit is bull. It really is, and it's not Narcotics Anonymous. Now, a lot of it is fun. A convention is fun. It is not Narcotics Anonymous. It may even present Narcotics Anonymous there, and people may speak like that, which is fine, but it's not Narcotics Anonymous. And there's many things like that we've gotten into, and we stamped the name on, and for the purpose, the underlying purpose of money, property, and prestige, right? And prestige, people think money, but prestige is the one. That's the one. Why? It's the core of our disease. That's why. Of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah, of course it's going to get in there. That's our disease. We're not using drugs. The disease coming in through prestige. There's no doubt in my mind. I see it all the time in my own life. And the idea of lending our name to all this thing is a problem. You know, that's the problem. We lend our name to all this stuff. And so people are confused. I feel sorry for new people today. I really do. Christ, we only had to deal with the AA crap. That was easy compared to the shit we deal with today. You know, really. I mean, that separating from them was easy. It was child's play compared to the stuff new people have to deal with today. You know, I mean, this goes off a little bit, but it drives me crazy that somebody with 5 or 6 years clean will tell me they've only worked up to step 5 or step 6. How the hell have you gone 5 or 6 years without actually doing 10-step all the time? How is that possible? You know, how is that possible? But we've written literature to make it possible. Well, we haven't, but some professionals have written literature to make that possible. And it's fucked up because, you know, I tell people all the time, and I have a little bit of clean time, so you think I'd have some clout there, but I guess I don't. I tell them all the time, you know, you don't have to use that stupid fucking book, especially if it's driving you crazy, to do this program. You don't really have to do it. And I can't pry them loose. They feel this drive or something that if they don't complete it, they're going to die. And God knows who instilled that in them. I have no idea. I didn't. I know that. It's insane. I'm a lot like Antoinette. When you were sharing, it's kind of funny, you know. I don't know, probably in 87 or 88, so one of my Padawan followers, one that I call sponsees, came to me and he said, listen, I want something a little more structured to work the steps. And I was like, what do you mean? He says, well, some kind of little guide or something. You know, so I sat down and hacked one out in an hour or so. And it was all based on, for me, because this is how I do it with people, is we read the step out of the book every day for like a week or so, or at least until they get it. And we talk about it every day, what we read and what came up. And so I wrote this guide. Basically, it threw some questions in there and everything else. And there was other guides that go on like Antoinette's and stuff. And I threw a few questions in there just to fill out the page and stuff. And they're good and everything. But the whole thing was reading it out of the basic text. That was the whole secret. And so, but it's still easy to do, you know, jot something up. And I never, you know, it's actually out there somewhere. People use it. It cracks me up because it was never, you know, it wasn't a big deal, you know, that kind of thing. And we can do little things like that. But those are more personal to how we sponsor, I think, and stuff like that. There's not like the NA way of doing the step guide. I mean, that's not what this is. That's not what this should be about. You know, people already touched on the professional literature. I mean, it's stupid. You know, I want to kind of go into the 7th step. But I want to read one little thing out of here that I think we'll all get a kick out of, because Antoinette mentioned it. It says our policy concerning money is clearly stated. We decline outside contributions, fellowships, completely self-supporting. We accept no funding, no endowments, and then it says no loans. Now this is in the gray book, but it's also in the basic text. I'm thinking, didn't we take some loans? Doesn't it say it right there? I don't know. And it goes on to say no handouts and no free ride. And I really want to talk a lot about the seventh tradition. I think in some of the writings in the basic text and stuff, they're wrong. I think putting on an activity or a fundraiser is wrong. I think that's inconsistent with the seventh tradition. I think being fully self-supporting means I hand money from my wallet to the cause, whatever that cause is, whether it's the home group or whether it's the group to support literature at cost and meeting schedules and stuff like that. I don't think we should. I think it's less spiritual to give you a T-shirt for $20 that we pay $10 for to get the $10 out of your ass. See, I don't think that's spiritual. I think if you want to do T-shirts, fine, but sell them at cost. And then if you need money for a project, ask for $10. See, I think that's spiritual. And I think we kind of got off on this a little bit because we were broke dick. I mean, we were broke dick in the 80s. We had no money. None of us had any money. None of us could scrape 2 dimes together. You know what I mean? I mean, we just couldn't. And so I think we fell into this, and it's bad. It's bad. You know, I mean, conventions started out not being fundraisers. Now they're fundraisers. You know, now we do activity fundraisers to fundraise for the fundraiser. And you see how the slippery slope works, right? And I think you have to get back to the pure idea of the seventh tradition. Bill taking money out of his wallet and giving it to the cause, whatever that exact cause is, and that as long as it stays directly responsible to the group, but to me too. Because the group is directly responsible to me. My home group is directly responsible to me, right? It's the same thing. It's part of the same principle. So I think all that is bad. I really do, and I think it's really built upon everything, and that's the money part. That's bad, you know, and money in the property. That's really bad. We cannot keep doing this. You know, we cannot keep doing this. And then the outside money. When you take a book and you sell it for profit to Hazleton or some other place, I mean, aren't we getting money from an outside agency? Yeah, enough said about that. That's simple enough. But the other way I think we can give back, and I think this is what they tried to get into when they wrote the stuff after the seventh tradition, was that sometimes groups were so poor that we told the church that we would do menial tasks around the church to pay our rent. And, you know, that's good. And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because that's still me. That's still me being self-supporting. Right? And I think that's what they were trying to say there. And we got into this fundraising thing for some reason. I don't know why. And I think it's hurt us. You know, it goes into so much of that. I want to talk about the service structure. Did anybody see anything in the traditions that say we formed a service structure? And once we formed one, do we have to use that particular one? I mean, it doesn't say anything like that anywhere. It doesn't say anything like that. In fact, it says opposite. It says if we form committees, then they need to be directly responsible to the group. That's what it says. That's what it says. It doesn't say we form a service structure. And then if we do form something, it doesn't mean the group's got to, that's the one we have to use. I hear it all the time. Well, this is the thing, and this is our service structure we agreed on. No, you may have agreed on it. It may be what you want to do. It ain't what I want to do. It may not be what we want to do. That's bullshit, you know? So, and that's why I was talking about, I don't even think there's really a pyramid. Because it's supposed to be directly responsible for the group. It should only be one level. If I read that right, it should be one level. That's all it really should be. Because that's what it's saying. I don't know how else you're going to be directly responsible if you're not directly responsible. You know? I don't know how it works. I have no idea how that works. And obviously the affiliation thing is something else I want to get into, because, and the lending out of the NA name. We've lent the NA name to so many things. There's so many things with the NA name on it, the corporations and stuff. I still think it's wrong to incorporate ever. I don't think we were meant as a fellowship to ever go into that realm. I think we're supposed to be a little group of people meeting in church basements and other places that we meet and stuff like that to carry the message, and no more than that. I don't think we were supposed to be anything else. Everybody says, well, who's going to protect the copyright on the book? Listen, there was another fellowship that lost the copyright on the book, and it didn't make any goddamn difference. So I don't know where that fear comes from. You know, there's at one point, you know, I was doing a newsletter and we did a lot of investigation, and there's a way to do a limit public domain on a book where basically you say that this book is complete the way it is, and you can use it, but you can't change it. And I thought maybe that would be a nice way to go with it. You know, it's like, all right, here's the book, because and you can use it. Anybody can use it. Anybody can print it or use it. You can't profit from it. That was the other caveat. But you can use it, and you just can't change it. And I thought that would work really well for our literature. But the affiliations to all these things. I mean, I don't even want to go into the outside agencies with drug courts and everything else. I mean, that to me, that seems so obvious that it's like, oh, come on now. That's why we have public information, you know, is to go out once a month and take what Narcotics Anonymous is to those people. That's the way that's supposed to be done. We go down to the courthouse and say, assemble your people on Thursday, and we'll be down there with some people, and we'll let them know what NA is, and we'll give them some literature. And if they want to come to our meetings, if they want what we have to offer, they're free to come like everybody else. You know, I mean, and to me, that's what the traditions tell us to do. You know, they don't tell us to go down there and tell some newcomer with 60 days that they have to sign some paper from some other parolee when they may actually have warrants themselves saying they attended this thing. I mean, that's ridiculous. How the hell did we get in that? How did we get in that, right? I mean, so it's ridiculous. The traditions warns against that. And see, that's been the problem, is everything's been we did it out of the goodness of our heart in the beginning. We thought we were helping out in the beginning, and it just takes on a life of its own. And next thing you know, it's a requirement. There's groups require the chairperson to sign shit. They got stamps. They tell people you have to stay to the end of the meeting. What the fuck is all that? What? Who the hell are we? We're just as bad as they are. You know, we just might be out from under the parole agency, right? But we're no different than them. That's just bullshit. And to me, it ends up setting up a divide between us and them, because we look more like the authority. I don't want to look like the authority to another drug addict. I want to look like another equal member, just like them. Yeah, I may have done this stuff longer, but that's it. There's no difference. I don't ever want to put anything between us there. I already talked all about that. That's good. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about my home group. You know, I have a strange deal with my home group. I work a schedule such that I'm never off on the same day. And so, like, for instance, on Thursday, I'm only off 3 Thursdays out of 7. And so it's really hard to actually, you know, take a commitment, right? So I kind of hooked up with this late night group, and they meet almost every night, and that's been pretty good. But they're a bunch of young people. And I found myself in a strange place in that I have to realize this, and I know people with time will realize this for themselves. My opinion holds a lot of weight. My opinion will sway things. And I have to do something about that. I think I'm a little, they're responsible too. They shouldn't, you know, they need to get on with this too, but I'm responsible for something like that. And so in my home group, I kind of let them do what they want. I tell them, we talk about it. I suggest shit, but I don't vote on it or nothing. And I let them go. And I try to, along the way, I kind of try to start pointing out some of the things they're tripping over and why, and let them do it. You know, let them do it. See, I was blessed. And I think Antoinette and some of the other ones will agree with this. I was blessed. There was nobody to help us. We were out there on their own. I was the guy. I've been the long timer. I've been the guy with the most clean time since I had about 5 years. I mean, I've been the guy with the most clean time always, in states, in countries I lived in. I mean, holy crap, you know? I was just out there. And yeah, a little scary once in a while, but also it makes you have to consider things and have to be mature enough to put these traditions to work and do the right thing. Don't do what's good for Bill. Do what's right. You know, it talks about somewhere doing the right things for the right reasons, you know, that kind of stuff. And so I kind of approach my home group that way. They participate in area and the rest of the crap. I don't. And you know, I kind of point out things once in a while. You know I don't actually participate in anything outside of my group for the most part. And and any of the stuff you even talked about earlier today, I'm not part of As Is. I support a lot of what they do, and I love those people and Anon people and people doing other things. I really support those people, but I'm not part of any of that. I don't really, I don't, I don't feel like that organizational stuff like that is well organized. It says we ought never be organized. I've kind of taken that kind of serious my whole life, you know. And it's not that I haven't tried. I mean, I've progressed through the service structure like most other people. You know, I was a home group member, then you know, I did literature at area, and then I was the vice chair. I wrote the guidelines. I was the chair. I went to region as the vice chair, wrote guidelines. Then I was the chair there. Then I did literature there. Then I went to the World Service Conference, and I was the representative. You know, I'd done all that. And what I learned was it's very inefficient, ineffective, and feeds the worst part of us. That's what I learned. So I don't do any of that. And even when alternate things pop up, and some of them are a lot more pure and closer to traditions, I still don't really participate in that. I just don't. I just don't think it works. I just don't think we need to go that far. I think it's too much. I think it's too much organization. Not for the Narcotics Anonymous program. You know, again, goes back to what I said about groups and meetings and stuff like that being NA. You know, when it talks about things that we might need, like on a world level, like a place for people to contact and stuff like that. You know, back in the day, we probably needed an office with somebody to answer the phone, send out literature, stuff like that. Today, we probably just need a web service. Somebody put up a website and an answer machine that you know, people can call back, you know, get a call back from you know, somebody that can just kind of say, listen, go to the website, or you know, if you can't get to the website, we'll mail you information. Not give their opinion on Narcotics Anonymous, just that. Hell, could be a non-addict. It's a simple enough job. In fact, it'd probably be better if it was non-addict. And then, you know, we just need some people to keep an eye on a website, a simple website that has our literature on it and has basically our statements on it, which are actually in the basic text. Who is an addict? What is the NA program? Why are we here? I mean, those are things. That's our public information in most ways, right? I mean, there's a few pamphlets are pretty good, but that's pretty much all that really needs to be put out there. And a meeting schedule. And it's crazy to me that there's a group of people who got together years ago and developed a platform to do meeting schedules. That they weren't part of a service structure. They were just a group of a few people, and they put this thing together, and they've never been part of the service structure. And they've put out a product that's free for everybody to use, that suffices to be not only a worldwide schedule, but also on a local level, that you can do the schedules on a local level, and then the local people keep it up to date, because world has never been able to keep the meeting schedule up to date. I don't know if anybody tried. I traveled a lot when I was in the 80s and 90s, and I could never find a meeting. You know, my go-to thing was look up the Alana Club in the book and go there and get an NA meeting schedule. I mean, because that's the only thing that worked, right? That's the only thing that really worked, because I've sat in too many damn parking lots at a meeting that's been closed for 2 years. I've done that too much. So but anyway, there's a group out there that's actually already done this outside the service structure. So obviously this stuff can be done without some huge organization. And all the rest of the crap they do, I don't want to talk about because it makes me sick. The flying around the world and being emissaries for the Narcotics Anonymous program just makes me ill. And I'm just so disappointed in people with a lot of clean time that do that kind of crap. It's just, I don't know, they're living different spiritual principles than I am or something. Or maybe I'm not that advanced yet. I don't know, one of the two. You know, we should have no opinion on outside issues. I mean, I don't know how we do anyway, but I don't explain that to anybody, do I? We have no opinions. All we have is, this is Narcotics Anonymous. They say what they want and we go, this is Narcotics Anonymous. And they say all this other stuff and we say, this is Narcotics Anonymous. That's all. That's all we got. We don't have to argue with them. We don't do anything else. You know, we're not going to change for them. I'm damn sure not changing for them. So it's easy. You know, it's pretty simple. That's all we tell them. We don't argue with them. We don't compromise with them. We don't say, well, we want your people here, so we'll say that, you know, doing these drugs here are okay and give them clean time. Are you kidding me? You know, no, that's not our thing. This is it. This is Narcotics Anonymous, period. We're not arguing about it. You know, you may be learned people and you may have doctorates and shit. And maybe you will find the cure one day. I don't know. Not my problem. I guess that'd be great. I don't understand how that works, because my problem is me, and I don't know how you cure me other than totally changing me, and that ain't going to happen, you know, unless God comes down and does it. And I talked about the money, property, and prestige. I really think what's happened with conventions and stuff and activities is really sad. It hurts me that they take new people and newer people and convince them to basically work for them like a cult does. You know, you do service work. You're going to come and you're going to help run this convention. You're going to do this service at this convention, to do this fundraiser. And we call it Narcotics Anonymous. That's so wrong. Listen, if you want to form a little nonprofit corporation and put on a recovery convention, I'll probably come to it. That would be lovely. And you can talk about Narcotics Anonymous the whole time you're there. That's fine. But don't tell members of Narcotics Anonymous that they have to be part of that crap. That's not the NA program. If they want to, fine. You know, if they want to go down to the food kitchen and serve food to people who are starving, that's just the same thing. That's fine and that's great. It's still not Narcotics Anonymous. Okay, but it's good. It's still a good thing, and I think that's the way I'd like to see conventions go, because I see it's slave labor almost. I hate to use the word slave, but it's non-volunteer. You know what I mean? Because sponsors are telling them, hey, you have to do this. These are the things you have to do if you want to stay clean. I keep getting pictures of people at the airport, when we used to be able to go to the airport and do what we wanted, dancing around with flowers, singing Hare Krishna. That's what I think when I see us make new people do this. Right? And we've confused stuff, because the conventions are a lot of fun and we love them, and they feed our spirit a lot. And so does church and a lot of other things too. But all of them are not Narcotics Anonymous. Even if the preacher up there is an NA and he gives an NA message at church, at a non-denominational church, that's still not Narcotics Anonymous. And that's basically what's happening at a convention. You know? And we have to disassociate ourselves with that. And we can't be taking funding from them. As a nonprofit, most of the time they make enough money to keep a nonprofit rolling and rolling and rolling. There's actually a camp out, I think, in Virginia or somewhere around that has their own nonprofit, and that's what they do. And they don't give money to nobody. It just keeps rolling around in there to make it cheaper every year, or so they can afford to do it every year. And that's good. And then if you want to fly speakers in, if you want to get famous people in and shit, that's your fucking business. It's a nonprofit corporation. You can do that. I got no problem with that. If you're going to do it in the name of NA, I got a problem with that. That's bullshit. To me, that's bullshit. And you know, I can't do that. And like I said, us with time and do that kind of stuff, that's one thing. But you're conning new people into this fundraising scheme. That's fucked up. That's what cults do. That's what cults do. You know, that's just be their decision. Hey, I'm over here at the food kitchen helping out. If you ever want to come over on Thursdays, you know, a bunch of us from the program come over here and we serve food to basically other drug addicts, basically, that are having a hard time, right? I mean, that's wonderful. And there's so many other things like that we can do. But they're suggestions. They're not the Narcotics Anonymous program. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. And we should have nothing in the Narcotics Anonymous program with that name on it, forcing them to do that, or making them feel through peer pressure that they have to do this, otherwise they won't stay clean. And I just think that's fucked up. You know, last thing I had was anonymity. You know, I don't understand why anonymity is in the 12th tradition. Because once you read all the way through them and you get to the end, it says start over, using anonymity as the foundation of all our principles. And I hope that, you know, a lot of the things I talked about, I have considered anonymity with these traditions every time I've tried to apply them. And a lot of things I talked about, like all of us being equal, and just because I got a bunch of clean time doesn't mean I'm any different than a guy with 60 days. We have the same equal right there in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting and in Narcotics Anonymous. And I believe that's anonymity. You know, and that's the foundation of all what I was hoping I was talking about, is anonymity, is that. And I think, you know, I think that's, let me see. Yeah, I went way too long again. I went about 15 minutes longer than I want, but that's all right, since I'm the last person. And I don't see any world board members. We probably take questions even longer, if you want, or we can just talk amongst yourself or whatever. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for letting me do this. I've really been wanting to do this. Thank you. That's it.